Oh, hey there. So, if you're anything like me, if you're on a cruise ship for a little while, you're like, you know what? What's the difference between a mile and a nautical mile? Do you guys know? Well, I'll tell you. The difference is that a mile is like, 5,280 feet, which everybody knows, but a nautical mile is 1.1508 miles. And why in the world would they make a nautical mile different than a regular mile, you might ask? Well, it's simple. You see, uh, the degrees, the coordinates on the Earth are all measured by latitude and longitude. And if you are in, the shipping industry, or if you are in an airplane or in space, then you're probably going to use nautical miles. And I guess there's reasons for it based on the curvature of the Earth and things like that. And so basically, they take, there's latitude and longitude, and latitude is going side to side. So that's going to be, it's going east and west, but it's measured how far away you are in degrees from the equator. So if you imagine that you've got a circle and straight across the middle of it, that's the equator, then that's 0 degrees latitude. But then if you're up at the North Pole or the South Pole, then you'll be 90 degrees north or 90 degrees south. And then anything in between, there'll be that many degrees. And so for the most part, it's the same distance between all those latitude things. And it's like, I forget exactly what, 54.6 miles or something like that. 59 something. Anyway, so then that's measured, that's separated into minutes, and then that's separated into seconds. And each one of those, if you have the nautical miles, then that helps you to figure it out exactly, and you can say your degrees, latitude and longitude, and it helps. Now, to make it slightly more confusing, your longitude goes north and south and measures things from the prime meridian, which is, in Europe, and then you measure 180 degrees around the world east or 180 degrees around the world west, and it goes from the top. And so because it starts big at the equator, then it's, I forget exactly what, 54 point something miles across to one longitude to the next one. But as you get closer to the North Pole or to the South Pole, then it gets down to 0, because obviously it's getting down to a point. So that is pretty helpful stuff. Now, how do they measure knots? Because your nautical miles is measuring distance, but what is knots? Well, knots is speed. And how in the world did they come up with that measurement? Well, I'll tell you. There's something called the common log. Okay, and what they would do is they would take this log, it was kind of shaped like a triangle, and then they would throw it out the back of the boat, and they would turn an hourglass over. And when this happened, it would drag behind the boat, and you would let it go until the hourglass, ran out of sand, and then you pull it back in, and they had knots on this rope that were, at regular intervals. And so they would pull that back in, and they would count how many knots went out in a certain amount of time, and that's how many knots fast they were going. And you're probably thinking to yourself, did you talk to the captains about this? I did. I've had several meals with them. They're actually really nice, and we've had a lot of good conversations. And they said that, we're normally going, and they used it in common terms that I can understand because I'm a dum-dum, about 25 miles an hour on average, and 10 hours a night. So we're doing about 250 miles a night. And they do most of their traveling while we're sleeping. So the fact that they're measured in nautical miles might beg the question, and I'm sure you're thinking this too, what about nautical kilometers? Are there nautical kilometers for people that are in the metric system? And the answer is no. Don't be ridiculous. There's just nautical miles, because, the imperial system is better at this one thing than the metric system. And I think that most Americans can agree that most Americans only know about the metric system if they're drug addicts. Everybody else is like, huh? Anyway, hope you learned something. Love you guys.